So it looks like Mr. Bernie Sanders went on the Joey Rogan show. Before I start triggering all the Bernie bros, I actually have some agreement with Bernie. Let's go with number one. I agree that the money in politics has gotten out of hand. And I caught some heat for one of my videos because I didn't give a that Donald Trump took a $400 million plane from Qatar. But apparently, the people who got triggered in that video don't understand the distinction between the average Joe and politicians. And we've had multiple Democrats grandstand in Congress, and they're like, oh my God, Donald Trump is so corrupt. I mean, this is your incentive structure that's been set up for years. And before someone jumps down my throat and says, well, Donald Trump's taking foreign government's money, Barack Obama took foreign government's money, according to the Government Institute Accountability's office. Are we really surprised one day we might get a man named Donald Trump who doesn't give a about conflicts of interest and how it looks? And this is just the conclusion when you say money is political speech and you give the government all the power to make decisions in the markets, that the cronyism will just reach new heights. But the serious part of me, of course not, money is not political speech. So I think there are some solutions we can figure out. I mean, either we limit campaign contributions or we take away the government's ability to pick winners and losers in the marketplace. It would probably be easier to go with limiting campaign contributions. Okay, moving on with some things I agree with Bernie Sanders. Let's take healthcare, for instance. Now, do I think the United States could afford Medicare for all? Absolutely not. We are currently unable to afford Medicare and Medicaid in their current forms. And yet, Medicare for all, let's nationalize everything. Terrible idea. Again, most things in life, I think the middle is the best option. Mean that we should have a public option for healthcare. That way, it's an option. You're not taking away anyone's private insurance. And honestly, the public option will probably be better than insurance companies anyways. And not totally bankrupt the country. But that'll never happen unless we address number one. And the third, last thing I agree with Bernie Sanders is climate change is actually a real problem. And if you don't believe that human activity contributes to climate change, you are literally disagreeing with 97% of scientists. And if you don't believe that, go ahead, you can believe whatever you want. Then again, we don't have another planet where we can run this experiment. We only have this one. So I think we should just treat climate change as man-made just to be cautious. All right, let's go with severe disagreements with Bernie Sanders. College education, I feel is worthless at this point. I went to college. I have a degree. Now, should that be publicly funded like we do with up until high school? Absolutely not. I might be okay with certain industries where we absolutely need more people, whether it's like medical care or engineering, but as far as like everyone's degree, no, I don't think taxpayers should pick up the bill for interpretive dance. We have a shortage of doctors. I wouldn't necessarily be against subsidizing that, but blanket answer for everything, no. And also part of the reason education has become so expensive is because of government guaranteed student loans. Another thing I disagree with Bernie Sanders is probably going to piss someone off too, is like raising taxes on rich people and raising taxes on corporations. Let's say you buy a product at a store. All corporate taxes have already been factored into the products you're buying. So if you want to increase corporate taxes, you're going to increase your grocery bill just because corporations don't pay the taxes. You, the customer, pays the taxes. Same thing with raising taxes on billionaires, etc., etc. Good luck getting billionaire money when they can go hide their money overseas, or hell, move their industry to another country where the taxes and regulations aren't as high. And also when Bernie Sanders says people need to pay their fair share, whatever the that means, Bernie Sanders is a millionaire. So any people who are like democratic socialists or socialists in general and they're wealthy, like Bernie Sanders I would mention, I would ask them to give away their wealth. You can write a bigger check to the IRS anytime you want. But they don't want to do that. They want to raise taxes on people who make more money than them. And also, let's think about the incentive structure. Once you make a certain amount, we tax you at 90%. What I would do if I was a multimillionaire, once I make that limit, I'm going to furlough all of my employees and I'm going to go play golf for the rest of the year. I'm not working for 10 cents on the dollar. And one thing I would say with Bernie Sanders, I agree that the Israelis have gone overboard in Gaza. Absolutely. Especially if you're blocking humanitarian aid. Then again, if you want to use the G word and accuse the Israelis of the G word, they wouldn't be actually giving food to them at all. And also there's a real worry if they're going to actually try to expel the Palestinians. And if they do that, that is blatant ethnic cleansing. But I don't think the rest of the world would allow them to do that. But maybe I'm naive. Because the Israelis, from their perspective, is these people will never stop fighting us. We've offered them peace several times. They keep saying no. Because in their mind, if they keep fighting, they might win someday. Well, that's not going to happen. But as far as like geopolitics is concerned, I think that's part of the reason the Democrats stole the nomination from Bernie multiple times, which I don't support, by the way. But after Bernie Sanders allowed Hillary Clinton to totally screw him over, and he was aware this happened, he kind of lost a lot of respect from me at that point because they feel that Bernie Sanders is a good dude. Do you think Bernie Sanders would be able to make the call, for instance, to assassinate General Soleimani? That guy was responsible for killing Americans, and after he got assassinated, I think that's totally within the realm of fair game. But I remember the liberals losing their mind. They were like, oh my God, we're going to go to war with Iran. And then all Iran did was just like, okay, we're going to shoot at your base and tell you we're going to shoot at your base. Maybe that's the silver lining with the Iraq war, because a lot of these other Middle Eastern governments saw like if the United States actually wanted to go in there and depose the sitting government, they wouldn't last very long. Saddam Hussein's government lasted like a month. We literally had Baghdad Bob, who's like Saddam Hussein's #1 propagandist, was saying, yeah, the Iraqis are totally destroying the Americans, and you had American tanks rolling up behind him. But could Bernie Sanders actually make the correct call and being like, okay, we're going to actually take out people who are evil? I don't think Bernie Sanders is that guy. And also, at the end of that interview, I was kind of like, wow, Kamala Harris couldn't sit down with Joe Rogan and be like, okay, I'll talk to you like a person for a couple hours. She couldn't even do that, bro. I mean, I think the younger generation who love Joe Rogan look at that and they're like, why is she afraid to talk to another person? Maybe it's because after that disastrous interview she did on The View, when she said she'd do nothing different than Joe Biden, and people are obviously super pissed off at Joe Biden. Never mind, she's a terrible border czar. And hopefully that doesn't come back to haunt us. That's one of the silver linings of Trump right now. I mean, look at deterrence. It works. Illegal border crossings are like down by like 90%. And I'll speak on this really quickly. One of the good things of Donald Trump being president, I definitely think it's a great litmus test for our democracy. People might not like this litmus test, as Donald Trump is pushing the bounds of executive authority. One could argue FDR did some things that were really unconstitutional. I mean, for fuck's sake, he interned the Japanese. So Trump is not our first person to be semi-authoritarian in our government. But now we're learning, do we want to trust the executive branch with all these executive authorities? Because at least the Republicans believe in democracy and listening to their primary voters, which obviously the Democrats don't.